You're listening to the Sports Scramble Podcast, where four friends serve up a weekly plate of sports with a side of SEC bias. Now, here are your hosts, Chet, Jacob, Wade, and Tyler.
Let's go!
Well, the four has now come down to two this week as Chet's going to be off for the next couple of weeks. He's on vacation. He has some work trip, and who knows where Jacob is. I tried texting him to see what he was doing. I guess he's busy. But it's just Wade and I. You better get used to this duo because SEC Talk will be returning in just a few short weeks. So it is a bit of a sad time that the Paris Olympics are over with. But we have college football on the horizon, so it's an exciting time to be a football fan. And also the NFL preseason is also kicking off with that. If we do have time, we will talk briefly about the NFL preseason, but it's the preseason. No one really cares about it. But Wade, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Like you said, the Olympics were quite fun to watch. It filled that sports dead zone or void that we have this time of the year. I know you and I are MLB fans, but a lot of people dread the July to August stretch before football season. But
especially the way that our team's playing lately.
Yeah, the Braves have not made it easy, and honestly, it kind of makes that transition to football a little bit quicker for me. I used to hang in there till September, but I'm already watching NFL preseason, and like you said, not even a lot of people care about that. But I have enjoyed watching the Olympics. It was super fun following Taryn and Kristen in the beach volleyball world. I think they're going to have a homecoming party here in Baton Rouge pretty soon, so that'll be cool to check out. But that kind of ties a ribbon on that. What about you?
Yeah, it ties a ribbon on it for me. I mean, like you mentioned, I haven't really been keeping up with MLB. I know that we're doing this fantasy baseball league that I've been keeping up with. It looks like you and I are safely in the playoffs. Jacob is sliding out the playoffs. Another guy whose name, whom the Bellinger tolls, he might be the winner in that division. So we'll keep y'all posted on how that finishes up. Looks like we have three matchups, then we get right into the playoffs, and that will pretty much tied the bow on the fantasy baseball season. We're going to shift our gears into the fantasy football season as we do have an announcement. Our main draft is now scheduled. It's going to be on Labor Day. So we're off of work, and what do we got to do? We got to work some more and trying to get this
put in that
football.
work.
Yeah, we got to put in that work. So that's definitely going to be an exciting weekend. You know, we had the opening weekend of college football that week, and we'll have our fantasy draft. And then on Thursday, we get treated with the Ravens and the Chiefs. And then in Brazil on Friday, it's the Eagles and the Packers. So exciting times to come. But let's before we get into the football talk, we do have to close the book on Paris. And what a job that Paris did as a host. I definitely think that they did a phenomenal job. You know, you had the Eiffel Tower, you had beach volleyball right under that. Then you had the marathon race finished up in there, and then the cycling as well. But let's get into the gold medal count before we get into our actual countries to see how those finished up. So USA and China, they both tied at 40 medals apiece. And then rounding out the top three in medals was Japan with 20. So the total medal counts, USA, I mean, this should be no surprise, 126 medals. I'll be curious to see how they do in LA because there's always that post boost. We saw it with France. France finished with 64. China finished with 91. Great Britain, Wade, so one of your countries, 65. And then rounding out the top five was France with 64, Australia 53, and then you had Japan with 45. So those are your total medal counts. Now let's see how our countries did with our final medal count check-in. So I think that it's pretty much a two-team race here between you and Chet, especially with the way that China finished. Looking at the total medal counts, you had Great Britain, Australia, and then also South Korea finish in the top 10. So, Wade, take it away with how things finish up.
Yeah, so it was quite the race to the podium between the three of us, really. Poor Jacob, he just didn't make the cut. But let's get right into it. Tyler took the bronze at third. You had the host country of France, and they really carried a lot of weight for you. I think you had a disadvantage with the fourth pick. This was a new experiment for us. We didn't know how it was going to quite shake out. But I think having the last pick did make it tough, but you did quite well with Japan and France both finishing in the top five. I fell to silver. Chet overtook me in the final week. We'll see how close it was. It was very close. But ultimately, big China, man. China just was too much to overcome for everybody. China exceeded expectations, really, and gave the USA a run for their money in the gold medal count and really in the overall. I think that China had a great showing, and Chet had some good secondary picks as well. The Netherlands was a top 10 team as well, and then Brazil was like 15th. So Chet edged me out for the gold. Jacob, you get the crazy kangaroo lady. That's how you are in this challenge.
Yeah.
If you didn't see that video, definitely go check that out. Some Olympic news, breakdancing or breaking as they call it, already off. They did it for 1 year and they're not going to return in 2028. So one and done there for Mr. Jacob and the breakdancing.
All right, well, there's your podium. Let's see how the points went down. I really want to see how close this was between you. I figured that Chet was going to ultimately pass you the way that China was just, 91 total medals. That's pretty impressive. They edged their goal from Tokyo. There you see it, Chet 302. Go down the list to see how everybody else did. Jacob had 185, myself 271. Did you get to 300? Oh, you almost did 290. All right, so it's pretty close.
Great Britain kind of disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I think that if Great Britain, originally I almost took Japan, remember? Now, if I took Japan over Great Britain, I think I would have caught Chet.
Been bronze.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the value pick for me was definitely France. That was my round 2 pick. I picked Japan in round 1, so I flipped that. I think that Canada definitely weighted me down a little bit, but 27 medals, that's respectable for them. I felt like that you had it after week number 2, and then you just saw China come out of nowhere. Table tennis, diving, they pretty much swept every gold medal in that. But looking at I'll give you the entirety of the medal counts for all 3 of our countries. So Chet had China, obviously the lead. That was the number 1 overall pick. That was pretty much decided with this one. Chet was the number 1 overall pick. I believe Jacob was number 2, or were you number 2 in this?
I had the second pick. I took Great Britain, and they did okay. They just didn't do as well.
And then Germany,
keep in mind the medal count. Well, it won't add up to the points that you're seeing here because we did weight the medals based on gold and all. But yeah, Chet getting all those golds with China really went a long way.
40, and the next one after that, closest was Japan at 20. So that was a big point differential. But Chet's 3 countries, China had 91 total medals. The Netherlands had 34. Brazil had 20, so pretty respectable from those 3 countries. Jacob, Germany, it was his number 1 pick, and they did not play like a number 1 country in the Olympics. 33 medals total for them. Italy had 40. Hungary had 19. Myself, Japan had 45. France, my lead country, like you mentioned, 64. And then Canada, 27. So pretty respectable for that. And then you with Great Britain, 65. Australia, 53. And then you had South Korea. South Korea got off to a fast start, and then they kind of tapered down. They had 32 medals. So if it was just based on position, you probably would have taken it. But since this was a weighted system with the most gold medals, China, I feel like next time that we do this for the summer games, we need to ban China too, because I think that they're too overpowered. That's just my opinion.
Probably so.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the U.S. And China out of this. So that really closes the book on the 2024 Paris Olympics. You saw in the closing ceremony. Paris passed the Olympic flag to Los Angeles, so the United States of America will be hosting the next Olympic Games. Some of the sports that are going to be coming are flag football. Be curious to see what NFL players, or if any NFL players, represent that. And then you'll have baseball and softball coming back. You'll have squash, so that's definitely going to be something to watch. And then you'll have cricket, one of the most popular sports in the world. Will be for the first time, I think, in quite some time. We haven't seen cricket. So what are you looking forward to for these next Olympic Games? Probably more to be excited since it's going to be in the home states.
Yeah, I think just a little bit more of a familiarity with the venues and the locations of things. I think that's going to be cool for me. I hope to maybe even get out west in the next 4 years to maybe kind of get a preview of it, or maybe that will be my West Coast trip.
That would be a bucket list
Yeah,
trip
so
for
I
sure.
think that's something to look forward to, just the closeness of it. And then I'm looking forward to the flag football and baseball coming in. I thought it was kind of ridiculous that baseball got removed in the first place, and I
Yeah.
think cricket's a great sport
Like,
to add as well.
they removed that for breaking. Like, come on.
Yeah, really. I do think it's interesting with the timing of the MLB season. You're probably not going to see any MLB players play in the Olympics, which is okay for the U.S. I think the U.S. can put together a pretty good collegiate team. But what are some of these other countries going to do in that situation? Because, yeah, they produce some MLB talent, but do they have an organized youth level team or a collegiate level team? I feel like all those guys are pro by now. Maybe the minor league players will be able to play. I'd like to see MLB take
Like a
maybe like a
WNBA
2 week
type of
break.
break. That's what
Yeah, like a
I agree.
late all-star break or something for like 2 weeks,
Yeah, I would like to see that too. I mean, the Olympics, I want to see the
Start in
best of the
March.
best. It's kind of like how, like basketball, they're already in the off season into the WNBA, like I just mentioned. They pretty much take like a month off. So most of their players can play the Olympics. But some of the sites are already announced. SoFi Stadium will be home to the opening ceremony, and then swimming. So that's definitely going to be exciting times for that. And then the track and field is going to be held at the Memorial Coliseum where USC plays football. So it's definitely going to be an exciting times. We have to wait 4 more years, but we got the Winter Olympics in between that. If you really care about it, don't know if we're going to be doing a draft for that. If not, then we'll be back in 4 years. And I think I'm already going to say now, USA and China are going to be the 2 countries banned from that draft, because we see. I feel like if you're just drafting China, that's pretty much the second best country. I feel like it leaves it more wide open. But honestly, I can see USA. They're going to get 150 medals alone, I think, in 4 years. So because they're going to get that home boost like France got this year. So definitely some sad times to see the Olympics. Don't really know what I'm going to watch from here on out, especially with college football returning. So got a couple more weeks, and then we're going to be right into the action with college football. But before we get into college football talk, let's get into our dog of the week picks. Dog, who you got?
I'm gonna kick it over to baseball. I'm gonna give it to Jackson Holiday. He just came back up from AAA, and probably debuted a little early. The O's got ahead of themselves. People are saying maybe he should be traded for Tarek Skubal or some of these other guys at the trade deadline. They held pat, and now I think they're really glad they did, because he homered in like 4 of his last 5 games this week, and he's just really looking like the stud that everybody thought he would be. So kudos to the kid for making the most of his second call-up. Yeah,
I'm going to go to the Olympics for one more time, and this man carried the U.S. Men's basketball team to gold, and it's Steph Curry. I mean, the man's just one of the best shooters of all time. So I got to get to Steph Curry. And that was his first Olympic Games. I don't know if that many of
I didn't know
y'all
that either.
know
Until y'all
that.
texted us.
He's had a couple of chances, which is surprising. He'll probably be back here in 4 years, I would have to assume, on the roster for Los Angeles. So that's definitely going to be exciting times. Basketball event will be, I believe it's going to be in the Lakers arena. I know that the Clippers are building a brand new arena, so definitely going to be curious to see how they use those 2 venues. So those are our dog of the week, one in baseball and one in the Olympics. And now let's get to college football. Before we finish off our previews, we did have the AP Top 25 preseason poll released today. Let's run through the top 10. So no surprise, Georgia is the number 1 overall team. They're receiving the most first-place votes with 46. Ohio State is number 2. They're receiving 15 first-place votes. And then Oregon, one of the newer teams in the Big Ten, is number 3. Texas is number 4. Alabama 5. Ole Miss 6. So you have pretty much 4 SEC teams in the top 6. And then you have Notre Dame number 7. Penn State and Michigan are 8 and 9. And then Florida State rounding out the top 10. So looking at the rest of the top 25, who's too high, who's too low for you?
I don't know. I think people are discounting Michigan. I'm not going to say they're inappropriately ranked, but I think that we're just assuming that they're not going to be good because they lost their quarterback and their running back. But I feel like they have that reload mentality. I wanted to say Missouri, but I think they came in pretty appropriately. That was going to be kind of my hidden gem team, but I think the word's out there. I don't know. There's some teams I could see going either way. Like I think Florida State could plummet, or I think maybe they could be good where they're at. I think people are kind of assuming Florida State's going to beat Clemson. I don't know if you can make that assumption. I think they're pretty even. So one team I'm hearing a lot of hype on, and I don't know if you just said where they're ranked or not. I might have missed it, but Utah. I've heard a lot of hype
Utah's
for them
12.
winning their 12th.
I think that they should be in the top 10.
Yeah, I like them at 12th. If you would have told me 15, I would have said they were too low, but I don't know. I'd say Florida State's probably the team that I'm curious about the most.
Yeah, I think the too low for me is got to be Utah. I mean, like I just mentioned, this is a loaded team. I think that coming into the new conference, I think that, Oregon has probably the best chance roster wise to go into a new conference and win it. I think that Utah is right there with them. I think that a team that's way too high for me is Miami. I'm just not really buying much into this team. I know that they just brought in Cam Ward, but there's still some issues on this defensive side of the ball and the offensive line too. And their schedule's not easy. They start off at Gainesville with Florida, and I could see them go from 19 to not even be ranked after week number 1. That's going to be in a hostile environment. Oklahoma at 16. That's a team that I could either see win 9 games or maybe be like 6-6, somewhere around that. You just never know what's going to happen.
That seems a little high for them.
Yeah, with Jackson Arnold, you saw him in the bowl game with what he did, and then that defense that defense will come to play every single week with Brent Venables. So that's and obviously, Texas A&M being ranked number 20. I mean, I feel like we're talking about them every season being ranked. I mean, yeah, are they a top 25 team? Who knows? I mean, coming in with Mike Elko, Connor Weidman coming back from his injury. But it was just announced today that their star running back is going to be out for the season. So there is, I don't know. There is some teams on this list like, Notre Dame being number 7,
Okay, that seems a little high.
Quarterback. I mean, that's way too high for me. So I think for the rest of that, I mean, the top 6, Alabama, maybe you could say that just because Nick Saban's gone, but that's still going to be a really good team. Ole Miss, to me, I think it's Ole Miss, maybe some people could say that they're too high at number 6. Maybe a lot of people aren't buying into them. And then Michigan is that wild card team for me. And then, Florida State, like you mentioned, with DJU, how is that offense going to work? Because they pretty much lost, Trey Benson, Keon Coleman, and then also Jordan Travis. So that's really going to be a new offense. And then their defense, too. Braden Fisk is no longer there. And then their defensive end, Jared Verse. So this is a pretty new team that Mike Norvell is going to be rolling into. And they don't get that easy of a test with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is a very scrappy bunch. I mean, I feel like every dynasty that I've done in EA Sports, Georgia Tech's are always beating them. So maybe EA Sports is trying to tell us something what's going to happen. So those are – it's preseason top 25. It's AP. Like, these rankings are just to make the matchups better because you really look at week number 1, you already have some marquee matchups. Georgia will be playing against Clemson, so that's a top 15 matchup. You have Notre Dame and Texas A&M, and then you have LSU and USC. That's going to be a top 25 game. USC is number 23. So that's already, whoever wins that one, you already have a top 25 team on your resume to build that. So those are just some of the marquee matchups in the top 25 from the AP poll. And obviously, you had some voters try to put in Colorado as they always, but I'm happy to report that Colorado is not even close to being in the top 20.
They got 1 vote, I saw.
Yeah. I don't know how some of these people get votes. But let's get into our final conference. We went through the SEC, ACC, and the Big Ten. And last but not least, let's go on to the Big 12. Starting off in alphabetical order like we always do here. on the show. We're going to be going through the over/under win totals. So looking at Arizona State's schedule, looking at the non-conference, you start off with Wyoming and Mississippi State. Mississippi State comes to you. Mississippi State, they're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the SEC, not going to lie. And then you get Texas State, and then you get right into Big 12 play. So the over/under for the Sun Devils, coming off of a not so great of a season, Arizona State's win total is set at 4.5. Are you taking the over, or are you going to go with the under for the Sun Devils here in 2024?
That opener against Wyoming could be tough. They're going to be a pretty good mid-major, but they probably get that done. I think they can road game against Mississippi State. That's not going to be.
I think that's a home game. The home games are in white, and the away games are in road.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting.
That's weird. The color ones are home.
Yeah, usually, yeah. Well, then, yeah, they could probably win that one. I'd probably give that one to the home team. So I think there's a good chance they start 3-0. Texas Tech's going to be a pretty tough first conference game for these guys on the road. Kansas is going to be tough. Utah's going to be tough. So you could start 3-0 and then drop 3 in a row pretty quickly, and then that could set the tone for the season. I see them getting to like 6-6. I don't think you can say they're definitively better than any of the conference teams that they have on here. But I think that they will pick up a win maybe against like UCF at home or Cincinnati on the road or BYU. I really am high on Arizona, who we'll talk about in just a second, so I don't see them winning that. But what was the over-under at?
4.5.
I'll give them the over. I think they get to at least 5-7, maybe 6-6.
Yeah, I think that the Mississippi State game is going to be the swing game for them. If they could win that one, start off 2-0, and Texas State, that's a high-powered offense. You got to go on the road to them in a new stadium. But I think that they get that. Like I think I agree with you, starting them 3-0. But after that, good luck. Texas Tech on the road in Lubbock, that's going to be a hostile environment. Probably going to be a high-scoring shootout because both of those defenses aren't very good. And then you get Kansas at home. Utah, those are two potential favorites to meet up in the Big 12 championship. So that's like 3 straight losses. And then on the road to Cincinnati, I think that's a loss. It's just a tough road trip going all the way to Cincinnati. And that's another loss and loss and loss and loss. I don't think they win a single game in the Big 12, to be honest with you. I think that they're not going to be favored in any game in the Big 12. So give me the under. I don't think that this is a very good football team. And they got pretty much every team that I like in the Big 12. UCF at home, maybe you can win that one. BYU at home, maybe you can win that one too.
I think they take one of those.
Yeah, you could probably take one of them, but I think that this is going to be a 4-8 team. So give me the under just slightly on that. But a team that you were very high on, let's get to their rival with Arizona. So new head coach, but pretty much the same offense that returning. It was a very good offense in 2023. Look at their start to the schedule. You got to like it. At New Mexico, then you get Northern Arizona, and then you get right into the Big 12 play. And that's what's you really are going to look at the Big 12, all these teams. You don't really get many out of conference since you get more Big 12 games. So you only get 2 non-conference. You get right into that. And it's a very tough start for them. They go on the road to Kansas State at Utah. That's a pretty brutal start for them. And they get Texas Tech. And then after that, only gets difficult. But Arizona's win total is set at 8. Are you taking the over on that?
I like them a lot, but let's see. I think Kansas State and Utah on the road, that's going to be tough. They could probably lose 2 right there, but if they can right the ship, I think they could win every other game on that schedule. So I'm going to give them the over. I think they go 9-3. I think they maybe lose the 2 there at the beginning, and then I think maybe they lose a road game late to like UCF or maybe a West Virginia high-powered offense at home. But yeah, I like this team a lot. They returned their quarterback. They're able to keep him on campus despite the coach leaving for Washington. So I think there's a lot of good momentum here. I think this team goes 9-3, and should they pull off one of those upsets, that would help them jockey for conference title game positioning, and they could potentially win this conference.
Yeah, if you split one of those 2 on the road games with Kansas State and Utah, you could find yourselves 10-2, and right there, if you win the Big 12 championship, then you're right into the playoff with the automatic bid. So I think that they start off undefeated with New Mexico and then Northern Arizona. That Kansas State game, definitely brutal for them. If they're going to split one of them, I think that Kansas State is the game. I just think going on the road to Utah, especially if that's going to be a night game, you're just not going to be able to win. And then I really like their chances to really run the table the rest. I'm not really buying Texas Tech, BYU. I think it's going to be one of the bottom teams. And then Colorado, I think that, Colorado is going to get the hype alone just to the playmakers that they have on the offense. But Colorado still has the problems that they did last year with the defense not being too great in the offensive line, not being able to get any pass protection. And then, I agree with you. I think that this is an easy over for me. I think this is a 9-win, 10-win team. If they lose one game that they probably shouldn't to either West Virginia or UCF, because I don't really see them losing to TCU. I think that TCU is still not there yet. Houston's going to be probably the worst team in the conference, and then Arizona State. I mean, that's a rivalry game at home. I just don't think that Arizona State. So yeah, I think this is either a 9-3, 10-2 team. So give me the over for the Wildcats. Now let's go on to BYU's football schedule. Their over-under win total is set at 4.5. So they start off with Southern Illinois. Then they go on the road to SMU, so that's not going to be an easy contest. And then they get Wyoming at home, and then they start off with Kansas State to opening up their Big 12 play. So are you buying any hype on the Cougars this season?
I don't know a ton about BYU, but they do have a pretty intimidating home environment, so I think they'll catch a few teams slipping. But no, I'm not too high on this team overall. I think that they'll just be kind of a middle of the road. A decently tough out of conference slate there with SMU and Wyoming too. So I could see that causing them trouble. I can't understand their graphic because they got at symbols with some of the light blue ones, and then because the SMU one says at SMU and that Wyoming one says at Wyoming.
Yeah, I don't know what they were trying to do.
Because the conference ones are all, I don't know what they're doing. Maybe that's the colors the team's wearing or something, because I know they sometimes use their new colors, sometimes they're old. But yeah, I think this team's kind of middle of the road, like maybe 6-6, 5-7.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time. This is going to be in the middle of the road. I think it's going to be 5-7, 6-6. So with the 4.5, I guess I'll go with the over. I definitely think that they could get 5 or 6 wins. But yeah, this is just going to be a middle of the road Big 12 team. So let's move on to the Baylor Bears 2024 schedule. This was a team coming off of a 3-9 season, and their last 2 seasons have not been great for them. This is probably do or die for David Aranda. This is probably it. If he doesn't get over 500, then I think that Baylor is going to go in a different direction. Their win total is set at 5.5, so they'll get a win against Tarleton State, but good luck after that. Utah, that was a really good game last year, and then they get Air Force at home and then on the road at Colorado. So that's already 2 brutal on the roads for them, Utah and Colorado, to start your season. So do you have the Bears getting over 5.5 wins this season?
It's a make it or break it year for Mr. Aranda. They better hope they do. I'm going to take the under. I'm going to go 5-7, just kind of a gut call. Again, not the easiest of schedules here. Out of conference game again, or I guess it's a home. It is a conference game now with Utah, but when they scheduled it, it was not.
It was like a home and home.
Yeah, so that's kind of tough. And now it counts double, right? Now it's a conference game. I think it just depends how they do in that middle stretch. I mean, if you drop games against BYU and Iowa State, TCU, I mean, your season's done because you're going to lose probably to Oklahoma State, Kansas, Texas. Is that Texas Southern at the start? I guess that's
Tarleton State.
Tarleton State. Okay, I thought that was Texas Tech at first. There's hope for this team. They could go up to 7-5, but I don't see them making that big of an improvement from last year.
I do not even see 7 wins. I'll give you the wins right now. I think that Tarleton State and Air Force. Air Force isn't easy like a win. So I think that they probably start off this. I think that they lose. honestly all three of their road games: Utah, Colorado, and Iowa State to open up the season. And then they win 3, so they really start off 3-3. They'll get the win against Texas Tech, and then I think that they lose to Oklahoma State, and then they'll beat TCU. And I think that they lose to West Virginia. They're going to Morgantown, West Virginia.
That is a road game, yeah.
I think West Virginia is one of the sleeper teams. They'll beat Houston and beat Kansas. So let's see how many wins I have. 1, 2, 3, 5. All right, so I'm taking the under. I just don't think
I'm gonna go 5 as well.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they get to a bowl game. I think that they would have to split either between BYU and Iowa State, and maybe they get a win on the road against West Virginia, but that's going to be an offense to deal with. So we're both on the under for the Bears in 2024. Let's move on to the next team, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Look at their start to the season. They get Towson to start off. They get Pitt, Miami of Ohio, so that's their non-conference. They start off with Houston. So that's you got to like your chances against them. So really starting this season in the Big 12, really set up for them if they want to make it to a bowl game. You get Houston, Texas Tech, UCF, Arizona State, and then you get Colorado. So they really avoid the top-heavy teams. I mean, the only one that's really considered to be the favorite in the Big 12 is Kansas State. So very manageable schedule for Cincinnati. Their over-under is set as 5. So do you have the Bearcats going over that total?
I don't know. I mean,
I think they can lose to Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, I'm going to go under. I'm just not very high on this team. And I think that, it sucks for them, but had realignment happened 2 years ago, or had they known the Big 12 was going to absorb the Pac-12 pretty much, this team wouldn't even be in this conference, and they'd be playing in the American still. I think it's going to be really tough for them to win in this conference going forward. So, no, I think they go like 4-8.
I agree with them. I think I go 4-8. Like I mentioned, I know it's a manageable schedule. I think that they could beat Houston, but Texas Tech, UCF, and then Arizona State. That's always going to be a tricky game. Colorado, you got West Virginia, Iowa State, and Kansas State. So that's like a brutal stretch to go through that from Colorado to Kansas State. So I just don't really see many wins during that stretch. So I think that 4-8 is right for this team. So we're both on the under for Cincinnati for this year. Let's go on now to Colorado. This is a team that's always gets some hype. Their win total is set at 5.5. Not the team that you want to start off your season with, North Dakota State. They're ranked preseason number 2 in the FCS, and they're only behind their arch rival in the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. So, yeah, good luck with that. And then you get Nebraska and Colorado State. So not too easy. I mean, Colorado State probably should have beat them. They should have beat them last year, but they didn't. And then Nebraska, they won that game last year. And then you get your first taste in the Big 12 with Baylor, and then you get UCF, Kansas State, Arizona, and then you get this is like once you get to the Big 12 in the back end, you get Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State in your season. Yikes. What do you got Deion's boys doing in 2024?
They should beat North Dakota State. I know that people are looking at that as a loss. They're still a different caliber athlete. Now, they better bring it. It's not going to be a cakewalk, but, I think they should win. I think they lose to Nebraska, though. That's tough on the road. They should be able to beat Colorado State on the road if this team has any thought of being good this year. So, I can see it starting out pretty good for them, like 3-1. It's going to be a tough road trip over there to Central Florida, rather. So maybe 3-2, and then it levels out at 3-3 with a loss to Kansas State. Even at home, I just think Kansas State's going to be one of the upper echelon teams. Yep. And then, I'm high on Arizona. So I think that there's a good chance that they take a dip and go down to 3-4. I think they can rebound nicely over the next 2 weeks, get to 5-4 maybe. But then they probably could lose out.
Don't lose. They don't win another game after Texas Tech.
So I guess 5-7.
Yeah, 5-7 sounds right to me. Let me go through this schedule. North Dakota State, I guess I'll give them the win, but 8.5. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting on North Dakota State to cover that one. Honestly, I just think that if Colorado can't stop North Dakota State and it gets to a shootout, that's what North Dakota State wants to get to. I think that they lose to Nebraska. Colorado really took it to them. I think that Nebraska is going to want some revenge. So let me start off 1-1, and then they go 2-1, 3-1. They lose to UCF. They lose to Kansas State. They lose to Arizona. They'll beat Cincinnati. Well, it's at Lubbock. I can't give them a win there, honestly, with Texas Tech, but who knows? Yeah, I'll go 5. I think that they get an improvement of 1 win. And then Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter goes to the NFL, and Colorado is going to be back to being Colorado as always. I'm not really buying too much in the hype. We'll see if they start off undefeated with Nebraska, but if they lose that, then I think they're really in for a rough season. So that Nebraska game is probably going to decide if they make a bowl game or not, because the Big 12 for them, yikes, good luck with that. Let's go on to the next team with the Houston Cougars, and by far they have the lowest win total with 3.5. So do you see this team being the worst in this conference?
I haven't studied them enough to make that bold of a claim, but yeah,
I think they are.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati is a team I keep seeing that I count as a loss on a lot of these schedules. So I guess we'll know maybe by the end of September between those two who's better. But yeah, a tough out of conference game there with Oklahoma. And then I see all the usual suspects. I see Utah, Kansas State, and Arizona all in a row, and Kansas. So that's a 4-game stretch of losses. I think this team's probably a cellar dweller, like 4-8, 3-9.
4-8, 3-9 sounds about right. We do have a question. Do you think that Prime stays after this year once his boys are gone?
I mean, it's not going to be because Colorado forces him out, and I don't necessarily see him going to the NFL. I don't know where he'd really go, because I don't see a situation where they're that good that he gets offered a job somewhere else. So I think he sticks around for like a year or two, but I don't think he's going to be there long term, especially with his health concerns. And I think it's just a publicity stunt, really.
Yep. All right, let's move on. So we pretty much both have Houston being the cellar dweller of the Big 12, and I would not be surprised in that. Let's go to Iowa State, the Cyclones. They face off against North Dakota week 1, and then they get their annual game at Iowa, and then they get an early bye, so they play 2 games and then get on to the bye. Then they get Arkansas State at Houston, and then you look at through their Big 12 matchup. Some tough games here with Kansas, Utah. Yikes, finishing with Utah and Kansas State. But the Cyclones over-under total is 7.5. Do you think that they can get that?
This team's tough for me. I don't know a ton about them, but tough slate there towards the end. Road game against West Virginia. I'm going to put them right down the middle, 6-6.
Yeah, 6-6 sounds about right to me. I think that they lose to Iowa. That's going to be their first game. I mean, Iowa's it's just going to be like a 12-7 game like it always is. It's going to just put you to sleep. It's probably going to be 11 a.m. like it always is. I think they could probably they'll start off 2-0. I think that they can beat Houston, beat Baylor. I think that they lose to West Virginia. I'm really high on West Virginia this year. I think that they're my sleeper team to not win the Big 12, but get more wins than you think. And then UCF, they get them at home, so I think that they can win that. Texas Tech, they get them at home too. I'm not really high on Texas Tech, so I think that they can win that one too. But at Kansas, who I'm very high on, lose that, beat Cincinnati, and then lose out. So let's see how many wins that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so 7-5. So I'm under 2. I have them at 7-5. So we both had the Cyclones going under the win total of 7.5. Let's move on to the next team with the Kansas Jayhawks. Their win total is probably the highest I've ever seen in the preseason. It's at 8. So you have the Jayhawks moving over that, or do you think it goes under this year? They start off with mighty Lindenwood to start off their season.
But it's not at their home stadium.
Yeah, it's at Children's Park. What is that, like a soccer field?
Okay, maybe so.
Wait, are they playing? Are they not playing at their home field all season? Oh, wait a minute. They're playing at Arrowhead. Yeah, they're playing at Arrowhead this season because their new stadium's under construction.
Ah. Oh,
Well,
look,
all
but
right.
not for the non-conference. The
Maybe they'll get the Chiefs
non-conference,
magic if they play in this stadium all season.
they must be playing at the
They're
soccer
playing at
stadium
Sporting Kansas City, I believe. Their
for
soccer.
the non-conference games.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting
There
wrinkle
you
there.
go. The more you know.
Yeah. I don't think it'll throw them off too much. Hopefully that doesn't let them lose any juice in their atmosphere. But yeah, I think there's a good chance for them to start 3-0. Tough game against West Virginia on the road. I think they could drop it. But then I think they'll rebound just fine up until maybe the Kansas State game.
Really favorable backstretch.
Yeah, favorable schedule, honestly. I mean, no Utah. You do play Kansas State.
I see 10-2 at worst, honestly.
Yeah, no Arizona, no Utah. So I think that's a big shift for them. I think I'll give them maybe 9-3 with all the wackiness of the two stadiums and lack of true home field advantage.
Yeah, this is a 9-3, 10-2 team. I think that they really start off undefeated. If they get their first loss, it's at West Virginia, just because it's a hostile environment. But they go back to Kansas City with Arrowhead Stadium. They get a win. Arizona State, we already talked about that. I mean, Arizona State, Houston. I mean, those are really three winnable games. And then on the road, Kansas State. I mean, Kansas State, that's going to be a team that's going to be right there in the Big 12 championship mix. So yeah, this is an easy over for me. I'm really high on Jalen Daniels in this offense. It's just going to come down to this defense. How can they do and how they do away from home? They're not going to be in their home stadium pretty much the entirety of the season. So how will the environments be in Arrowhead? It's not probably going to be like the Chiefs get every single Sunday, but who knows? Maybe they get some of the magic that the Chiefs get in that home stadium. So let's move on to the next one. Their arch rivals being the Kansas State Wildcats. They get UT Martin to start off their season. They get on the road at Tulane. I mean, Tulane, that's going to be a different team. No Michael Pratt. That offense is going to be completely different. And then you get Arizona. I don't know why. I guess it's either going to be a Friday game or a Saturday game, but it's September 13th or 14th. So that's definitely not. But they do get it home. It's a tricky game. And then you look at the rest of their schedule. Their big games are Oklahoma State, Kansas. But you really look at Kansas State, all their big games are at home. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind as we get to their over-under win total. And it's going to be one of the more heavy favorites at 9.5. So do you have the Cats getting over that one?
They did lose their quarterback, but were able to replace him with the guy that did step in and play a lot last year. Tough road game there with Tulane. Don't want to get caught slipping there, especially in the hottest part of Louisiana.
Yeah, that's true. Not the time you want to be going to Louisiana.
That could be tough. And then BYU, I mean, Tulane to BYU, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, you go from the Big Easy to the Provo.
That's tough with Arizona sandwiched in between.
I mean, Colorado on the road isn't easy too. And then West Virginia.
Yeah, this is a tough back and forth. I mean, as you can see,
they do get their big games at home.
But they get three big mountain games with BYU, Colorado, West Virginia. I'm going to take it down a notch on this team. You said 9.5?
9.5.
I'm going to give them 8.
I think so too. I think that they split that mountain game. I mean, to go from Colorado, and they don't get a bye week in between. They have to go from Colorado and then back to the East Coast to West Virginia. That's going to be tricky.
And home to Kansas.
Look at their plane. Like, they go from New Orleans to BYU, then they go to Colorado, and then they go to West Virginia, Houston. I mean, they're going all over the country pretty much for their road trips. So yeah, I think I'm not too high on as everybody else is on Kansas State. Losing Will Howard, that's a big blow for them. The defense is going to be one of the best in the Big 12. But yeah, I think that they're going to not go undefeated at home. I think that they either can lose to one of those three big games with Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. I think that I would probably have to say Arizona just coming off that road trip to New Orleans and Tulane. But yeah, I'm going to go 8 wins for them. So both under for that. Now let's go to the post with Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy gets, like I just mentioned, the number 1 team in the FCS to start off the season with South Dakota State. You get Arkansas at home. Tulsa, so that's your non-conference. You start off hot with probably going to be two of the better teams in the Big 12 with Utah at home and then on the road at Kansas State. So over under win total for Mike Gundy's boys is 8.
Tough 3-game stretch, like you said there. Followed up by a road game to BYU. I think 8's appropriate. I think they hit it right on the head.
I think this is going to be 8 or 9 wins for me. I don't think that they beat Utah. That is a home game. So, I could see them win that one. But Kansas State, that's going to be a tough road environment for them. I'm going to go, let's say, 9-3. I think that they get the over for this one.
They do get some of those good ones at home with Utah and West Virginia.
Yeah, they do get that one. That's why I'm going with the 9. I think that they could probably – either split that one. If you go 2-0, you're really set up. You do get back-to-back road trips with BYU and Baylor, and then you come home to Arizona State, and then you get TCU, Colorado. Those are your road games. But yeah, I think that this is, with Ollie Gordon there, this offense is going to compete with anybody in the Big 12, and then their defense, I think it's really going to be formidable. So yeah, give me 9-3 for Mike Gundy's boys. You can't never go with against the mullet. So give me the 9 wins in the over. All right, let's go on to the next one with the TCU Horned Frogs. This was a team that went to the Natty, and then last season did not make a bowl game, but they have a tough road trip. They start off with Stanford, and then you get Long Island at home, and then UCF right into that. So TCU is set at 7.5. Are you believing in the Horned Frogs this season?
I don't know. I think
then you
probably 6-6.
I mean, golly, you just faced the ACC for the majority of your non-con.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 6-6.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 6-6. Let's move on to the next one. I mean, we're not gonna spend too much time on the teams that are not gonna do so hot. Texas Tech, they're set at 7.5. Looking at the schedule, do you see that many wins for the Red Raiders?
Road game against Washington State, that could be a loss.
A lot of road games to start the season.
Yeah. No, I think they go under. I think they go 6-6 or 7-5.
Yeah, I'm going to go under with this one. I think that, Washington State, they get them at home. So I think that they could start off the season undefeated, going through like Arizona State, Cincinnati. They probably split that one. And then you get Arizona at home. You get them at home, but Arizona's one of the better teams. And then you finish off Colorado, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Iowa State. Yeah, 6-6 sounds about right to me for Texas Tech. Let's move on to UCF. KJ Jefferson, we know a little bit about him. They face off, my gosh, what a walk in the park that you get for the first 2 weeks of New Hampshire and Sam Houston. And then you get TCU, Colorado. I think that they're going to be undefeated by the time they get to Florida potentially. That could set up for a fun environment there. But UCF, they're set at 7.5.
Yeah, I could see them starting out the year 4-0. Probably losing to Swamp though.
Yeah.
But even after that, they could go 5-1. Heading into a road game, maybe 5-2.
Yeah, they don't get Utah and Kansas or Kansas State.
Only Arizona.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they get Utah at the bottom. I see them now.
Utah, West Virginia, Arizona, Florida. I think they go 7-5.
Yeah, 7-5 sounds about right to me. I think that the main losses I see are Florida, West Virginia, Utah, Arizona. Those will probably be the 4. I think that they lose the game that they shouldn't, whether that's Colorado at home, Arizona State. Just pick one. I think that this is a 7-5, maybe 8-4 team if they do get lucky. But I think that's 7-5. So we're going to do the push for UCF and the Knights. Next one is Utah. 2024 schedule for them. They get Southern Utah to open up their season. They get Baylor right off that, and then they go back to non-conference play for 1 week, and then they go back to conference play the rest of the season. So Cam Rising back for feels like his 10th season with the Utes. 9.5 for Utah.
So that Baylor game doesn't count as a conference game, I guess, is what I'm hearing?
I have no idea.
Because
it's got to be, though. There's no way that it shouldn't.
Because I think it was scheduled before they joined the conference.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I think that Utah still beats them.
Yeah, because otherwise they play 10 conference games.
Yep.
But yeah, I think this team's really, really good. We talked about them maybe even needing to be a top 10 team. They get some of the tough ones at home with Arizona at home, Iowa State at home. Their biggest travel is going to be to UCF there at the end of the year. And Oklahoma State could be a tough one on the road. But I think this team maybe slips up once. I'm going to go ahead and give them an 11-1 season.
Yeah, I think 10-2, like the bare minimum for this team. It would surprise me if they get below that. I'm going to go 11-1-2. Very high on this team. I went a little bit away from them last season just because of Cam Rising's injury, but hopefully he's healthy. We get a full season from him. And honestly, if we do, he could be one of the Heisman favorites if Utah runs his table in the Big 12. All right, last team here in the Big 12. Let's go to West Virginia. They start off with a tough game against Penn State. They do get that at home. Then they get Albany at Pitt and then right into Big 12 play. The Mountaineers win total is 6.5. To me, that's easy. If you're on DraftKings, do over. This is going to be one of the most underrated teams. I think they get to either 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think so as well. I like this team to be mid-tier. I think that they're a lot better than some of the teams on there like Cincinnati, Baylor, Texas Tech. I mean, I think they'll get the over because of games like that. I think they get to at least 7, maybe 8.
All right, so those are over/under win totals. Now let's give our championship pick predictions. Who do you have facing off in Arlington, Texas, in this first new era of the Big 12?
Well, after looking at the schedule, I completely see why people are picking Kansas. So I'm going to go Kansas versus Utah, and I think ultimately Utah will take it.
Well, a week ago, the ACC was completely different picks, and now it's all on the same page. I also have Utah and Kansas. I feel like if this is ever going to be the year that Kansas is going to win the Big 12 championship, and the storyline makes it even better because they have to play not a single true home game the whole entire season. So that's definitely going to be a fun environment over there at Arrowhead. So that's going to be interesting. You have to host Kansas games on Saturdays, and then Sundays you go right back to it with Kansas City Chiefs. So give me Utah versus Kansas, and this is a no-brainer. Utah, to me, so much talent on offense and defense. I think that the Utes in their first year in the Big 12 be the crown of the Big 12. So both Utah and Chet is also picking Utah, but Oklahoma State, I could see that too. It's pretty much Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State are pretty much the top 4 teams. So Wade and I both had the 2 same matchups, and then Chet, who's not here with us, but he's here in the comments with Utah versus Oklahoma State. All right, we're going to take a little bit of break in our preview, so we'll get into the NFC and AFC North previews, but let's chop this thing up with our fantasy football corner, as we're just a few weeks away from pretty much everybody having their fantasy football drafts. Let me go ahead and get this pulled up. I don't know why it just signed me out of my Google Slides, but let me get that up for you. And for this week, we're going to be doing the must draft players. So we saw last week we were talking about, if you were picking from the late enter of the draft, and then you had a middle round or early round, just some of the players to keep on your radar. But now's the time to really lock in on these must draft players. So we have 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and then a tight end that we're going to be looking at. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and then we're going to get into a little bit of discussion of these players. So our must draft players, let's get into the quarterback. And if you looked at my top 5 quarterbacks, you're already hinting at this guy being a league winner. And I'm pretty high on the Houston Texans already. It's going to be C.J. Stroud. I mean, he's pretty much the 5th or 4th quarterback going off the board. It's pretty much consists of Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. Those are your top 3 guys. And then you have Lamar going off the board. And then it's pretty much after that, it's either Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, or who else was talking about? But C.J. Stroud, you're looking at his projected totals, 306.7. He's coming off of a phenomenal rookie season. And the offense really got better. You got Joe Mixon in the backfield. he's going to be one of the pass catchers. And really, the riches got richer in this wide receiver room. You already had a guy like Tank Dell. We saw him connection in the preseason with C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell. And then you bring in Stephon Diggs when you already have a guy like Nico Collins. And you can't forget about the tight end position with Dalton Schultz. So they're just a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. I just think that C.J. Stroud, he's just a lock to be a top 10 quarterback. And I can see him really, if the Houston Texans are aware that I think that they could be, maybe like an 11-win, 12-win team, then C.J. Stroud has got to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback for me. So just like the way that you can get him, he's in the middle round. If you don't get one of the elite guys, Mahomes, Allen, or Hurts, I feel like Stroud could be right there with them. So really coming off a phenomenal season, gets more pass catchers for him. So I'm definitely trying to get C.J. Stroud as much as I can in drafts this season. Let's go to another quarterback. This is more of like a late round guy, a middle round guy if you are playing in 12-team leagues. And this is going to be a lot of upside in the rushing department, and that's going to be Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. I am all in on this Washington Commanders offense. They got Brian Robinson, got Austin Eckler in the back. Pretty much going to be a split backfield, but if I would have to guess, Brian Robinson will be their RB1 in that offense. You look at the wide receivers, you got the Jahan Dotson, then you also have Terry McLaurin. So I think that if you want one of those wide receivers, I would probably go with Terry McLaurin outside of all those guys. But looking at Jaden Daniels, we already saw in the preseason, he had that 46-yard pass, and then he ran it in with a 5-yard touchdown, and that's exactly what you're looking for. I think that if you like a guy like Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels is pretty much going to do what he can too. So I think that this Washington Commanders offense, no one's really talking about this Commanders offense. I think that they're going to be an improved bunch. This was a team that couldn't really move the football last season, but get in Jaden Daniels. Look where you get him at ADP, pick 108. I think that if you pass up on pretty much all the guys that I just talked about and you get Jaden Daniels, I would definitely be confident of him being my starting quarterback. And if you have him coming off of the bench too, if one of your guys goes down or is not performing as you expected, then Jaden Daniels, you're looking at his passing department. I think that he's going to get a lot of touchdowns. Then you get the rushing game too. We love those quarterbacks in fantasy that could do both. And I think that Jaden Daniels, coming off a Heisman Trophy winning season at LSU, I'm all in on Jaden Daniels if I miss out on one of the top guys. So draft Jaden Daniels in the middle round, in the late round, just depending on what type of format league that you play in. Now let's go on to the running backs. This was another guy that I've been really talking up, and that is Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens. And I must admit, for the past couple of seasons, I've been a little bit off on Derrick Henry, but I learned my lesson. You can't be off on Derrick Henry no matter what his age is. He's now over age of 30, and he's in a much better offense now. This is an offense that's going to run the football. This is going to be one of the more run-heavy offenses in the league. You really look at the wide receivers. Zay Flowers will probably be the wide receiver 1. Rashad Bateman, can he stay healthy on the field? You just never know. And then Mark Andrews, one of your top tight ends in the league, can he stay on the field? That's definitely going to be the concern. But I think the only factor is Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson is going to get his, but when the Ravens are in the goal line, Derrick Henry is going to get him a fair share of touchdowns. So this is going to be a run-heavy offense. That's why I really like Derrick Henry. And to get him in round number 2, I think that's a steal. I think that if you miss out on CMC, Breece Hall, Bijan, one of those top running backs, and you have Derrick Henry as your RB1, or if you get one of your top running backs and pair with Derrick Henry, then you're really set at the running back position. So I feel confident, even if you have Derrick Henry as your RB1, but if you have a complement to the RB2, that's a pretty good start to your fantasy drafts. Let's get on to the next running back, and we're going to go to the AFC West and Isaiah Pacheco. If you're looking for consistency in fantasy football for the past couple of years, it's been Pacheco, and he really was a winner in the free agency market. Jerick McKinnon is no longer on this roster. And the guy outside of that is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I'm not really too high on him. I think that this is going to be the Isaiah Pacheco show. I think that if you're looking for a 3-down running back, this is the guy for them. And there are some concerns into this offense. Travis Kelce coming off one of his worst seasons in the NFL. We'll see if he can bounce back. And you're looking at the wide receivers. I mean, you already have Marquise Brown. He's dealing with an injury. Rashee Rice, who knows if he's going to have a suspension or not. And then that really leaves Xavier Worthy. So Isaiah Pacheco, he could definitely run between the tackles, but he's also one of the more elite running backs in the NFL that can catch some passes out of the backfield. So getting Pacheco in the second and third round of your drafts, I mean, you're getting a first round talent to me. I think that he could really set himself up for being a top 10. Maybe he can even sneak into the top 5, just depending on what this offense can do. But he's in one of the best offenses in the league. If you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes throwing the rock to you, then yeah, I am definitely drafted Isaiah Pacheco. I would feel confident in him as your RB1, but like I mentioned with Derrick Henry, getting him as a compliment to one of your top running backs would definitely be better. So let's go on now to the wide receivers. There might be a little bit of controversy, but I'm very high on this guy, and it's Malik Neighbors with the New York Giants. Now, I know that people are going to say that he's already dealing with an injury already. Yes, he had that fight in the preseason. But right now, we did have reports that he is dealing with an ankle sprain, but I think that he's going to be back for a regular season. And, we're all worried about Daniel Jones, but, I mean, this guy is going to get all the targets. Who else is going to catch the ball on this offense? Really nobody. Daniel Jones is looking to Malik Neighbors. But, yeah. I mean, getting him where you can. I mean, this is pretty much drafting your wide receiver 1. I wouldn't want him as my wide receiver 1. I would either want him as my wide receiver 2. And if you play, wide receiver 3 leagues, I want him as my wide receiver 3, maybe a flex. But I think that outside, of the rookies, I think that, you could draft Marvin Harrison. But outside of that, I think that Malik Neighbors is the second best rookie that you can get. And he's going to be on offense that he's, looking for target share. I think he's going to be one of the highest wide receivers getting most of that. Now let's go on to the next wide receiver. I might be pulling some of y'all back after the Malik Neighbors if you weren't too high on him. I'm going to go with Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've had some love, some hate for Mike Evans in the past couple of seasons, but you can't deny it. I'm looking at the last offseason, and we were wondering, how good is this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense going to be? Who's going to be the quarterback? Well, if you drafted Mike Evans, you were very happy with your pick last year, as Baker Mayfield absolutely cooked defenses last year. And you always got to worry about Chris Godwin, but Godwin also is coming off one of his, honestly, I wouldn't want to call it worse fantasy performances, but he definitely was a dud in fantasy last season. I mean, even people are drafting him ahead of Mike Evans, and Mike Evans had a phenomenal season. So I think that, the touchdowns probably going to come down a notch. But, I mean, look, you saw it last season with Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans connection. It's there. So, yeah, if I see Mike Evans on that draft board, you better be clicking.
What's this, Tyler? There. Mike Evans love from Tyler?
Yep, I'm loving Mike Evans this season. I'm definitely all in on this Tampa Bay offense. Even Rachaad White. I didn't put him on here, but I love Rachaad White. I
like Rachaad as well.
Yeah, he can finish in the top 10. That's one of the guys that I love too. Now let's go on to the tight end. Let's go to Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. And there's some targets that's up in the air. Who's going to get him? Is it going to be James Cook? Is it going to be Dalton Kincaid? You don't have Gabe Davis there anymore. You don't have Stephon Diggs. And, really the wide receivers that you look at, you brought in Curtis Samuel. You have Khalil Shakir. You drafted the Florida State wide receiver, the rookie of Keon Coleman. You have Dawson Knox. I have not been a fan of Dawson Knox the whole entire time that he's been on the Buffalo Bills. I think that Dalton Kincaid, you see what Travis Kelce did the past couple of seasons in the Chiefs. I think that really the Dalton Kincaid role can really come into effect in Buffalo. I think that he's going to get a lot of touchdowns this season. I think 5 is right there around that mark of what I could see him. I think that he's going to be one of the top tight ends here in the league. I think that Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce are probably going to be your top 2 guys. But honestly, I think the door is wide open for that number 3, and I think that Dalton Kincaid, he's the 5th tight end going off the board. I think that is an extreme value. I think that Dalton Kincaid can really sneak in being the top 3 tight ends. So those are your must drafts heading into your 2024 fantasy football drafts. I'll shut up and I'll let Wade talk about that list and maybe give some of his guys that he's looking at of drafting this season.
Yeah, I think you got a good list there. And just to keep it kind of high term, it's a really good rookie wide receiver class. I think if it's not Neighbors, you could pick any number of guys, whether you like Harrison, but you're gonna have to pay a price to get him.
He's going to the second
Neighbors
round.
is definitely going to be more the value. But then I think you're going to see guys make an impact in their first year, maybe like a Ricky Pearsall, Adonai Mitchell. I'm high on Brian Thomas Jr. I think that he is the receiver to get on the Jaguars. I think an interesting pick at tight end. I think you could get Evan Ingram, another Jaguar, and if you could hit on a tight end like Ingram or maybe a Kincaid, maybe a Brock Bowers, that would allow you to go get another flex guy or another running back or wide receiver, and maybe double up at that position while still getting similar points at tight end. So, fantasy football, it's all about those middle round picks. So that's what Tyler's trying to help you out with here. Everybody's going to pick the same first 20 guys, and it's a matter of who stays healthy. But where you make your money is in those middle rounds, finding guys that are 2 or 3 rounds undervalued before your peers do.
Yeah, I mean, I could have just gone on here. The must draft quarterback is Josh Allen. We already know that, people.
But can you get the points from Jaden Daniels, who statistically should run for more yards than Josh Allen?
Yeah, I think that if you miss out on those elite guys I just talked about, I think that Jaden Daniels, you have to start him. I mean, I would definitely do it. I mean, looking at the rookie quarterbacks, you got Caleb Williams, you got Jaden Daniels. I think that you saw Caleb Williams in the preseason. He looked good too. He has really good wide receivers. You got DJ Moore, you brought in Keenan Allen, and then the running back position is probably going to be Khalil Herbert. So, yeah, I think you brought up some good points about the tight end spot. It's not like past years where you really don't really have to take a tight end in the early rounds. If you miss out on Laporta or Kelsey, you could get value in the middle rounds, like Ingram, like Kincaid, Njoku, Ferguson, even like we haven't even talked about Jake Ferguson. Like it's CeeDee Lamb if he signs a contract. Jerry Jones is just being stupid at this point if he hasn't. And then, but outside of that in the offense, I mean, Dak Prescott looked to Jake Ferguson last season. So I'm not too high on Brock Bowers, to be honest with you, this season, going to the Raiders because they already got Michael Mayer. But, yeah, Brock Bowers was a freak, though. So, I mean, if you miss out on all those guys, you got Brock Bowers. I mean, that's just like a roll.
I would take Njoku over Bowers, to clarify. I'm
not touching Kyle Pitts. I know that he has –
You can hit on somebody else's team.
Yeah. I know that he has Kirk Cousins. It's a better quarterback. I just cannot get behind Kyle Pitts this year. But
I loved him on SEC Talk, man. I thought he was going to be so good in the pros.
I know.
And he was for a year.
Yep, he was. All right, so we will continue fantasy football. I think the next couple of weeks we're going to be doing a live mock draft like we did last year, so keep up with that. So we will continue rolling on with Fantasy Football Corner. But now let's get back to our previews. Go on now to the NFL, to the NFC North first. There's the man that we were just talking about, Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. Looking at their schedule, they start off with the Titans, and then, they really start off with their division. They get the Titans, they get the Texans, and the Colts. And, man, after the video that I saw the Colts today, that one fan, I might have to dock the Colts of their over-under. But the over-under total for the Bears is 8.5. Do you see that for this Bears team?
Dude, that's a weird schedule. They play all AFC South teams to start.
Oh, they do.
The
Rams.
That is interesting. When do they play the Jags? Week
6 in London. So the Jags home away from home, pretty much.
I'm sorry. What did you say the over was on this?
It was 8.5.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. I think this team's going to be improved, but the NFC North is not a cakewalk this year. I think the Lions should be the favorite, and I think the Packers are going to be pretty decent. So I'm going to put this team at 7-10, and I think that's a good year for them. I think they got a lot to look forward to. I think Keenan Allen's great to get Caleb Williams acclimated to the NFL, and then I think next year they'll pass the torch to Roma Dunze, and I think that they'll be in a position to make a run. But I think this looks a little bit more like Burrow's first year before this team is ready to make a leap.
Yeah, I don't think that this is going to be a team that makes the leap, wins the division this year, 8.5. I think they go right around that. I'm either at 6, 7 wins, somewhere around that mark. They get Tennessee at home. That's definitely a winnable game. But I mean, the NFL, I mean, you can say it's an easy game,
You
but it's
can't
not.
go game by game in the NFL.
Yeah, you can't really go game by game. But yeah, I mean, starting off with 3 teams in the South. I mean, yeah, that's really weird to do that. And then you get LA at home, and then you get Carolina in week number 5. So yeah, I think that
There's some winnable games, but
this is going to be an improved offense. There are some stretches. You get Washington on the road, Arizona on the road. That's going to be 2. Offenses are also going to be improved with you, and then you get New England. And you get they don't, do they even play a division game? Not until week 11 is what I'm seeing. So
I
that's
know. But
very
then
late. Very bad.
Look at it after that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a tough finish.
Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco. Yeah, I'm seeing
What?
6.
That's so whack that they don't play a division game until week 11. Are you kidding me?
I apologize. I originally said that the AFC South was but I'm just stuck on the AFC South from last week. That's not division games. They don't have a division game until the Packers in week number 11. Then they get Minnesota and Detroit on Thanksgiving. So maybe they get Detroit on Thanksgiving because we know Detroit can't win on Thanksgiving. They didn't do it last year. It was I believe it was the Packers.
Packers that got them on the road.
So yeah, this is going to be an improved team on offense, defense too. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a division where everybody's just going to beat each other up. So I see 6 or 7. So give me the under on the 8.5. Now let's go on to the next team, the Minnesota Vikings. This is a team that's also looking to bounce back. A lot of injuries, to Kirk Cousins. Cousins is gone. Justin Jefferson, hopefully we get a fully healthy season from him. So the Vikings, 6.5. So Vegas has the Vikings being the last place team. Do you see that coming to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, this team's got to start out hot if they're gonna.
That's a brutal start,
and it's a tough start. So, yeah, I'm gonna go under. I mean, they probably win one game before the bye week.
Even after the bye week, you get Detroit and the Rams on the road, and then you get 3 road games in Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Chicago.
Yeah, an early bye is the last thing you want for this team because first off, they might have one win before bye week, and then they're going to get so muddled down with injuries and fatigue in the second half of the season that they're just going to start looking towards the draft, and you're probably going to see J.J. McCarthy starting probably by that Arizona game.
Bye.
So, I don't see this team being very good. Talk about sleeper picks. I think sometime before the end of the year, Ty Chandler will be starting for this team, and that could be a good late round running back to add. Like your last pick of the draft, he could be a good one to add.
Yeah, I really usually like Aaron Jones, but not with this team. I just don't think that this is going to be a very good team, scoring a lot of touchdowns.
But he could be a safety blanket for whoever's at QB.
Yeah, it definitely is. They're probably gonna be running the football more than they have with Kirk Cousins. That's why you see Justin Jefferson down on some people's boards. But if Justin Jefferson has a healthy season, I mean, the man's gonna still be one of the best wide receivers. Just man, that's a brutal start to the season. I mean, on the road at New York. I mean, maybe you get that one. That's just going to be a back and forth. But after that, good luck with San Francisco, Houston, Green Bay, the Jets. I can see all 4 of those teams being playoff teams. And then you get a bye week, and then you come right back to Detroit. And this is going to be the last place team in the NFC North right here. 6.5. Maybe they get to that. But, I mean, I see like 5, maybe 4 wins. This is going to be a brutal schedule, especially the start of it. Maybe they could, get some of their wins at the back half with Arizona, Atlanta, Chicago, maybe some of that with Kirk Cousins coming back. But yeah, this is not going to be a pretty season for Minnesota. Now let's go on to the Green Bay Packers. They start off in Brazil with the Philadelphia Eagles in week number 1. So that's definitely going to be an exciting game for international fans. But the Packers, coming off of a playoff run, almost defeated the 49ers in that divisional game. They took down the Cowboys in round number 1. Packers are set at 9.5. Are you buying on the Cheeseheads?
Yeah, I like them right around there. I think 10 wins is doable. I like Jordan Love a lot. I think that he's no doubt a top 15 quarterback in the league. And I think that I'm a little concerned about his weapons at wide receiver. Who's going to step up and be that wide receiver number one? And then the health at running back is a little thin right now. Marshawn Wood's banged up. A.J. Dillon, I think he's a little banged up, and he hasn't really been that great. You do have Josh Jacobs. If he can play like he did 2 years ago, I think this team's going to be phenomenal. I think things are on the up in Green Bay. I don't think they're nearly as good as Detroit, but I could see him getting to 10 wins, maybe 9, and sliding in as a wild card.
Yeah, I see 10 or 9 wins for this team too. I think that the Eagles game is definitely going to be a tricky one. If they can win that one, I think that they could really get off to a hot start. I think getting Indianapolis at home on the road against Tennessee, which I'm not too high on that season. You get Minnesota, and then you go on the road to the Rams. I could see them, 3-1 through that stretch, and then maybe drop to Los Angeles. And then after that, I think, you get Houston at home, Detroit at home, San Francisco at home, Miami at home. So it's not like these are some easy schedule at all. But I think that this team definitely has the talent on offense and defense. Like you mentioned, they brought in Josh Jacobs. Like you mentioned, the wide receivers who's going to step up. My vote would probably be Jaden Reed. The way that he performed in week number 1, but you just never know. It could be like a receiver every week. But I think that this defense is going to play every single week and just keep him in the ball game. I think that Jordan Love, he's going to also take him a step further too. So give me 10 wins for them. But we'll see now to the next team, the Detroit Lions. They're coming off of their first divisional win in quite some time. Can they do it again? We will see. Their win total is 10.5. Do you think the Lions can get over that?
Yeah, I'll give them right at that. I'll give them 11. I think they beat the Packers by a game. Not too easy of a schedule. You do start on the road there with
back-to-back road games.
Yeah. So I think if you split them, that's good by NFL standards. Early bye week concerns me for this team. I think contenders would typically like to have a later bye week. And like we saw for Chicago, a lot of divisional games late. And then when you come out of the divisional games, you're playing Buffalo and San Fran. So I think this is a team that could get off to a pretty hot start. But then I think they kind of slip up a little bit towards the end. But it's going to be good practice for the playoffs. And I think they go 11-6, win the division. Probably not good enough for one of the byes, but I think they'll be ready to rock.
I think that this team's going to be ready to roll. Definitely not definitely a hard schedule, but that's what you get when you win the division. You get the number 1 teams in the NFC, and looks like their cross is the AFC East, I believe. No, it's the AFC South. Looks like all the NFC North teams are playing the AFC South, and then the NFC West as well.
So they draw the Bills out of random, which is
tough.
They
draw the Bills out of random since they won their division. They get all the number 1 teams. But yeah, I think I'm confident that this team can get 11 wins. If they don't, I think that can win 10 wins and maybe get the tiebreaker over Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that I bought heavy on last season, and I still really feel confident in this team. This is going to be an offense that continues to improve, and that defense is also very young and very talented too. So. Looks like both of us had the Detroit Lions winning the division. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got the Lions by 1 game over Green Bay.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a 2-horse race. I think that the Vikings are going to get last. The Bears will probably be a cute story. Maybe they can sneak into a wild card, but it's going to be the Packers and the Lions, either of those 2 teams winning this division. So that is the NFC North. Now let's go to the AFC North. And let's start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. They start off their season with the New England Patriots, and then that's the preseason. My bad. Who did they start off with then? Oh,
they do.
The Commanders. Oh, so we get Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow. So if you're an LSU Tiger fan, that will definitely, and that's on Monday night. So that's going to be under lights for them as this Bengals team looks to bounce back after injury-riddled season. Their win total, Vegas looks like they're right on them with 10.5. So do you see, I know you know a lot about this team. So do you have the Bengals bouncing back this season?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty cakewalk start to the season minus the Chiefs game. I mean, they should be 3-1.
Can't forget about Baltimore. Wait, no, yeah. That's preseason.
But then you play New York. I mean, I think Burrow's going to be a little bit better at the start of this season than he was last season. I think this team goes 11-6. And I think Baltimore probably also goes somewhere in that ballpark. And Cleveland shouldn't be bad either. And Pittsburgh, I think, is a hair below those teams. But I think there's a chance that every team in the AFC North this year goes 9-8 or better.
Yeah, it's going to be a loaded division once again. You know, you had the Browns make the playoffs. I believe, did the Steelers make the playoffs too? Did they sneak in?
The Steelers did not make the playoffs last year, but they did continue their streak of being 500 or better.
Yep. So I think that streak continues for them. For the Bengals, you know, I'm not going to say the schedules, you know, it's like a walk in the park to start the season. You know, you get the Commanders, you get the Panthers, and you get the Ravens. So, you know, the Ravens probably going to be the most formidable team out of those. Then you get the Giants, the Browns, and then you get the Eagles. So, yeah, I think that this is a team. I don't know if I should say 11 wins because I'm still hesitant on this offense. I think this offense is going to take a step back. You know, losing a guy like Joe Mixon, that's going to be a big blow, and have to rely on a guy that hasn't really been an every down back of Zach Moss. I don't know.
I like Chase Brown, though. I think that could be a good duo.
Yeah, I'm going to go 10-7. I think that this is I'm going to go under for them. I think that they're still a step behind the Ravens right now, maybe a little bit better than the Browns. But, yeah, this is going to be another division that just beats each other up pretty much every week. It's going to be one of the most loaded divisions. It could be a scenario where all 4 teams make the playoffs if it's that crazy. But we will see. As Wade has them going 11-6, I have them going 10-7. Hey, they love going 10-7. Last time they went 10-7, they made it to the Super Bowl.
I think it's going to be hard for anybody to get more than 10 wins in this division.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, they don't get an easy test as they have to face the Chiefs on the road on Thursday Night Football to kick off the season. Their over-win total is 11. Do you see that for the Ravens?
Same comments as the Bengals, really. I think that they're going to be neck and neck. If either team goes 2-0 against each other, they're going to win the division. And last year, that's what Baltimore did.
Yeah, I'm going to go right at 11. I think they could get to 12. You know, they won, what, it was like 13, 14 games last season. I
think they went 14-3?
14-3. I mean,
that have to do with Burrow being out, though.
Yeah, I don't know if they can do that again. It's pretty difficult. So it's going to be a little bit step back, but I think that this is still the best team in the North. I'm already going to give it away. I think the Baltimore Ravens do it again. I know we pretty much go on chalk for this NFC North and AFC North. But I think that the Ravens get to 11 wins, 12 wins. So I'm going to go with the push of the 11 wins. So give me 11. So let's move on to the next team in this division, and that's going to be the Cleveland Browns. They're going bowling, and they face off against the Dallas Cowboys. So that's not an easy start to the season. So the Browns are set at 8.5. Do they go 11 wins once again, even though they had Joe Flacco for half of the season, which was like one of the storylines of last season?
That was a hell of a storyline. I mean, this team really exceeded expectations. And for what it's worth, I mean, they seem to have the Bengals number every year.
Yeah.
Which really helps Baltimore as well. I think they're a tick below those two teams we just discussed, but I do think they could sneak in at 9-8 as a wild card. If they got the 10 wins, that would be phenomenal. We don't know about Deshaun Watson yet. We don't know if Nick Chubb's going to play until potentially week 5. They should be all right without him. I mean, they should win 3 of those games, maybe split them 2-2. I think there's probably a good chance he starts the year on the physically unable to perform list, is what I'm getting at. So I'm going to put them a touch below the other teams just because we don't know. I think they go 9. I really think this whole division is going to be tiered. I think Baltimore or Cincinnati is going to get to 11. The second place team is going to be at 10. I think Cleveland gets to 9, and then the team we're about to talk about, Pittsburgh, I think they fall just under 500 and probably go 8-9.
I'm going to go 9 wins for me, too. Like I mentioned, this is going to be a very close division race. That like first place and last place is like 2 or 3 games between both of them. It's going to be a really even division. I think that the really start to the season, I mean, you get road games. I mean, man, that is a lot of road games. You get Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Washington, and Philadelphia all on the road. So that's not going to be easy. I think that this is a team that's going to step a little bit back just because they're missing Nick Chubb. I think, Deshaun Watson, who knows what he's going to do. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about this offense, man. The defense, I mean, it's going to be one of the best in the NFL.
I think the defense
that's going to give them 9 wins itself.
And the weather.
Yeah,
the weather and that defense.
This team steps a little bit back. I think that they get 3rd or 4th place. I'm not going to reveal my pick just yet. Let's go on now to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see if they can keep their over 500 streak alive, and they get off with Kirko Cousins in week number 1. That's going to be an interesting one. They get a road trip to Atlanta and then a road trip to Indianapolis to start off their season. So, I mean, those are 2 winnable games, even though it's on the road. So with the Browns being at 8.5, so are the Steelers. They're 8.5. So you see them going over 8.5 or just under that with 8.
Vegas isn't showing their cards, huh?
Nope. I think it's a tie.
That's a pretty good line there for Vegas. Are you betting on the 500 or below? You have to pick one side. I'm gonna take the under. I think they go 8 and 9. I just think this division's pretty dang good. I think they'll all beat up on each other. But I don't know that you can tell me the Steelers are definitively better than a lot of these out of divisional games. It's not a terrible draw. But, you do see the Eagles and the Chiefs on there. I think those are games that swing them in that negative direction. They play the Jets early on in the year. I think the Jets are going to be good early in the season. Same with maybe the Colts. So I'm going to give them the under, but I think they're going to be pesky, and I think they'll be in the hunt for most of the season. As you can see, they play the Browns and the Bengals in the final 3 weeks there with the Eagles sandwiched in between.
Yeah, those games are going to mean a lot. And I was
bye week though.
I was looking at this from top to bottom. I was like, man, they have a lot of games, but actually it's horizontal. They have Atlanta, Denver, Los Angeles. Okay. Then they have the Colts. So they get 3 of 4. I mean, that's not an easy start to the season. I mean, Atlanta's going to be better. I mean, Bo Nix, who knows what he's going to do? He had a heck of a
I think they'll get that. Actually, I like it better that way, that it is horizontal.
You know what? I can't bet against Mike Tomlin to not go over 500, so give me 9. I think that this is, like I mentioned, I could see all 4 teams division potentially make the playoffs, depending on how everybody else in the divisions do. But I'm going to go 9 wins. Can't ever bet against Mike Tomlin and the boys.
But look at that finish, Tyler.
Yeah, oh my God. That's
look at November 17th to the end.
Holy moly. Wait a minute. I don't know about 9 now.
Read it horizontally. Baltimore, Cleveland, Bengals.
Baltimore, Cleveland, Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Yikes.
Playoffs start on November 17th.
Scratch that. Sorry, Mike Tomlin. I'm going to go under.
I'm saying maybe 7 and 10 after reading that.
I was looking at it, like I mentioned, top to bottom. I did not, golly, that's got to be one of the most brutal.
And then throw in the Cowboys and the Jets before that.
And they're going to lose a game that they shouldn't. Like, I would not be shocked if they lose week 1 at Atlanta.
I think just because of the quarterback controversy, I'm going to knock them down a smidge and go 7 and 10.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback situation is a great year, rolling out Russell Wilson and Justin Fields.
I think could be good if they would just go all in on Fields. I think they took a late flyer on him, as they should have, but I think you're not going to get the best out of either guy because I think Russell Wilson's watching his shoulder, and I don't think Fields is really getting developed.
Well, sorry, Mike Tomlin. I thought I was going to go with you, but after Wade brought up that brutal stretch, I mean, yikes.
And it's not a Tomlin situation.
It's not a Tomlin. It's just like his quarterbacks. I mean, it's not what you want every single week when you're in this division where I don't know. I just don't know how they're going to be able to score against those type of defenses. I mean, the Jets, you get Dallas, you get Baltimore. I mean, yeah. I mean, you get all these tough defenses to end the season. I'm just glad that they get the bye week before like the week. Like I would even throw in that mix. I think that Washington is going to be a sneaky team with that offense. So yeah, I'm going to have the Steelers definitively finishing last place in this division, probably not make the playoffs. So there you go. That is our previews. Next week, we will either go to the West or the East. We will decide that off that. And in the college football world, I don't know how the hell we're going to do this, but we're going to do our college football playoff predictions. So, yeah, tune into that to next week. Before we end the show, we do have a little bit of NASCAR from our NASCAR Neil. So it is still the silly season, I believe, even though the Olympics are over, but they should be getting back to the track.
Yep, they were actually back last night, and
Okay.
Neil sent me a little live action update, and it was pretty cool. I saw the Twitter, I saw like a CGI analytics of the finish that was pretty cool, and then I saw, of course, the actual live feed of the video. But nonetheless, they did return to Richmond, and the green flag waves and the Toyotas continue their historic dominance with Hamlin, Bell, and Truex in the top three for most of the first stage. They stayed on the hard tires, and then Belly took stage two. At the caution, only Suarez and McDowell took the option of the new tires. There was a little bit of a weather issue here, and Suarez surges up there with him. So he gets he led the first 22 laps over the competition, and it seems to be working great. But then most drivers opted in for the three-strap strategy in stage two, making it fun on the drivers using the different tires. So you did see a difference in strategy there. Suarez holds on to the lead as he gained and continued to win stage two. To start stage three, all the drivers that had both sets of soft tires went to them to start the stage to get an advantage early. Stage three had a lot of chaos, just like stage two. And this is where it got really interesting. With 15 laps to go, Austin Dillon took the lead kind of out of nowhere. It was very congested, and he came around the edge. It was pretty badass. You got to check it out. But that's not where it got too crazy. But with 4 to go, there was a caution with the 47 car spinning out the 41. That put the teams with the options. They were good in this situation if it went to OT. Into OT, Logano started beside Dillon in the first round and took the lead with 1 to go, but Dillon wasn't having it, and he takes a huge bump on the 22 car, which knocked out the 11, and he won the race. And Neil's dad summed it up pretty good. He said that's the most three-way to win the short track race since Dale drove the car. And Neil thought that was pretty cool, bridging the generations between the Intimidator and Austin Dillon. But it wasn't without controversy. Obviously, Logano and his guys were very pissed after the race. He thought it was his to win. He thought it was a dirty move. And I learned something new from Neil, that race stands as is. They're going to review it. And if any action's taken, if they decide it was illegal or dirty, that will just be on the next race. Mm-hmm. So that thing stands. There's no way Logano can get his money back. Dillon could be suspended in future weeks, but I think it's just crazy that he directly impacted the result of the finish. You say it's illegal, but you're still going to give him the win. That's tough.
Hey, man, the more you know. I mean, there's always some controversy in every race, I feel like, in NASCAR these days. But it's good to see them back on the track, once the Olympics are over. The silly season's over, and then you'll have really most of the sports returning to normal. And with the Olympics over with, we are now in full go to football. We're pretty much going to be all football podcasts from here on out. I mean, we still got a little bit of previews, a little bit of fantasy football corner, and then we'll get right into week 0 of Florida State and Georgia Tech kicking us off in college. And then week 1 will be kicking off on Labor Day week with the Ravens and the Chiefs. So definitely a lot of content coming from us in the next coming weeks. And we will be right back here next week talking more about the NFC and AFC. Let's go with the East next time. Then we'll have our college football playoff predictions, and then fantasy football corner. I'll be coming up with something as well. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you back here next time on Monday night right here on the Sports Growing Podcast. So long for now.